The Talksport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the Talksport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search Talksport Fan Network.
Final score at Dean Court today, AFC Bournemouth 1, Wolverhampton Wanderers 1. However, we did win on penalties. Thank you for joining us. Now, before we get going, hit the like, subscribe, the bell button below. It helps the channel to grow. I rhyme. So let's talk about this game because, of course, a week ago we was beaten by Wolves 1-0 at Dean Court in the Premier League match. What should be, as everybody say, our bread and butter, but silverware is on the agenda, and considering that we're not looking over our shoulders and are aiming for that dream of European football, we might as well go for some silverware as well. And the FA Cup is something that, would be a dream to win. Now, can you remember watching back all those years ago as kids? The 1995 FA Cup final was the one that stuck out in my mind. Of course, Everton beat Manchester United. Paul Rideout goal. Of course, we spoke to Paul about that as well. But there's so many others as well throughout the years. Wimbledon beating Liverpool is another big one. And, we can only dream that maybe, just maybe, our name is on the cup. It could well be after today. Don't get me wrong. It was a stressful and a difficult watch at times. But personally, I think AFC Bournemouth were the better team. First half, I think, and I think we come out the blocks quite well. We did look instantly good. We was looking, our intensity was there. It was back again. We wasn't giving Wolves much time on the ball at all, and they were losing the ball in particularly bad areas, which of course is what you try to do, as a football player. So I was very, very happy with the intensity was back. And it was only half an hour before the first goal. Now, of course, we'll just mention quickly about the lineups as well. And there was a few little tweaks. Of course, Ryan Christie injured against Brighton. He's out. So we've started off with Kepa, of course, in goal. Right back of Lewis Cook, Hill and Howson in the middle, Kerkez on the left. And then we had Alex Scott and Tyler Adams in the centre, with David Brooks just in a little bit more advanced position. Semenyo, right-hand side, Tavernier on the left, and then Evanilson up front. And it was good to see Evanilson. It's a bit of a shame for Dango. I've got to be honest. I wouldn't be particularly happy if I was Dango, but he's a good lad, and he can probably take it on the chin and go, right, okay, I will get my chance again. But it was only half an hour, and of course, Evanilson has already put himself out a little bit, and he's opened the scoring. To be fair, with regards to this, Semenyo did, quite a bit. He managed to break away from his defender, and a lovely touch to control the ball. Shot at Sam Johnston. Johnston was in a bit more advanced position than possibly should have been. Maybe a little bit back, maybe a bit more on his line. But he canned it straight into the path of Evanilson, who's duly slot home. And it was one of those lovely goals that you like to see. The shot was good. The parry probably not so good. And then the striker just doesn't make a mistake. Now, there was two other controversial points, and of course, I was thinking at halftime that I was going to be making another rant video for you Wolves fans that are watching. Not so much so, to be honest. So let's talk about the first one. Of course, I don't have to do it really when we win. I'm happy bunny today. But let's talk about the first one. So a corner comes into the box, and it was Dean Howson and Milos Kerkez at the back. Now, the ball come off the sleeve of Kerkez, and this was really weird because it lasted for about 8 minutes. All this, VAR stuff. I hate VAR. It just destroys the whole atmosphere of the game. Now, I've read since that it was because the technology, that it had like a semi-offside technology in place, that failed, which is the biggest load of bollocks going, because at the end of the day, if you're having to draw lines and try and create something to rule off a goal, it's just it's looking and asking for problems. Now, it didn't come back on us today, but hey, it could come back on another team and they could be kicked out of a competition, when they've scored quite a legitimate goal, which I thought personally this was. This was a perfect goal. The ball's come over from, I think it was David Brooks, took the ball, corner, and then Dean Howson and Milos Kerkez are there at the back post. Kerkez, I think it kind of hits his sleeve and then goes in. Now, that's a legitimate goal. They were looking for the handball at first. Now, when they decided they couldn't look at that, they started looking at an offside. Now, from a corner, these things need to be clarified, because from a corner like that, can it really be classified as offside? I personally think that there was a Wolves player in a more advanced position towards the goal, but we don't know, because A, there was too many players in the middle, in the mixer, and B, it was the technology failed. So they're drawing up all these lines from all different angles. It's taken 8 minutes. Nobody knows either all the ways. I've seen the actual shots of it and the screenshots of this goal, and it's a goal. It's a fucking goal. I'm sorry. It's a goal. If Wolves had scored it, I would have said it's a goal as well. It was an absolute joke, to be perfectly honest. The third one, gotta be honest. Yeah, that definitely was a handball. It kind of bounced up, hit Alex Scott's hand. Absolutely no complaints. Honestly, no complaints about that one at all. Quite a decent little finish in the end. But yeah, to be honest, the third one, no. But the second one, Milos Kerkez's goal, should have stood all day long. It was a legitimate goal. They decided it wasn't a handball. Then they started looking for offside. Fuck me. What is this world coming to when we're trying to make reasons for, ruling off goals, and it's just shite. It's just shite. Let's have a look and say, right, okay, is it within reasonable doubt? I don't think it was. You know, so yeah, 1-0 at the break though. 1-0 at the break. So we go into the break. We're much the better team. The intensity's been there. Second half, I think Wolves come out probably a little bit stronger, and I've got to give this man a lot of credit, because in a moment I'm going to slate him. And Wolves fans, I think you might even agree with me on this. Now, Matheus Cunha, that strike that he scored was possibly the best goal I've ever seen at Dean Court. He's controlled the ball, and then he struck a beautifully weighted shot that no goalkeeper in the world is going to stop. I have absolutely zero arguments, because it was just beautiful. It's a beautiful goal. I'll say this, that in the run up to that goal, I think maybe Howson could have done a little bit better, because it was pulled back for Cunha, and before he shot that in. But yeah, it was really, really good. And Wolves, for a little period, were much the better side. I think they did hustle us about. Cunha was always dangerous when he got going. And we couldn't get really anything moving up the other end. I think Ryan Nori was very, very good for them as well today, got to give him a lot of credit. So no surprise, we went to extra time. First half of extra time, pretty much null and void, to be perfectly honest. There's not much I can say about it. But the second half, we were well on top. I think Wolves had tired to an extent, apart from one player. We'll come to this in a moment. Tired to an extent, and we were pushing and trying to find that winner. Justin Kluivert, who had come on a while earlier, was looking really fresh. He was looking creative. Jefferson was on, and Sam Johnston made a couple of really good saves as well to keep Wolves in the match. So it looked as if it was going to penalties, of course, which it did. And then I think it was the 118th minute, kind of in the centre of the pitch, on the right-hand side, as if were looking from the Steve Fletcher stand. So halfway, on the right-hand side, if you're looking from the Steve Fletcher stand, left-hand side, if you're looking from the Ted shed. There's a little bit of a tangle. Matheus Cunha is not getting much opportunities. His teammates are tiring, to be fair. And Milos Kerkez, who has kept him quiet apart from that 1 point, has got in a bit of a tangle with him. I think there was a little bit grabbing from both of them. It's nothing that's, unforeseen in the professional game. It's actually something that, you'd see back in the 90s, you'd see it all the time. So there was a bit of tangling. And then Matheus Cunha does this. He turns around to Kerkez, and it looks like it's a swing with his fist. That's what it looks like. I've watched it back. Next thing, there's a stamp. He moves forward and stamps, and then his head moves forwards. It is, for what he had done earlier on in the game, and I wonder how many Wolves fans. I want your opinion on this, because I think he's a quality player. You know what I've said before about him. If, say for example, he wants European football at the end of the season, and we can offer European football, and he's not going to stay at Wolves, and he's going to go somewhere to play in the Europa League, Champions League, wherever, and we can offer that. He is a man, despite this, that I would absolutely go and pick up from Wolverhampton and drive all the way down to Bournemouth myself, because the man is such a talented player, but he's a fucking head case as well. He's an absolute head case, and this showed. In what million years was Matheus Cunha thinking of? If this was Justin Kluivert or any of our players, I would be saying exactly the same about them. But it was an absolute moment of madness. The game's going nowhere. You are going to be taking a penalty. You're probably to be taking the most important penalty for Wolverhampton Wanderers in that penalty shootout. The last one, which, do I need to remind you, if Wolves had scored that, they would have gone through. And he's completely and utterly lost the plot. It's great for us, yeah, don't get me wrong. But I'm reporting on it how I see it. I saw the swing. I saw the stamp. I only saw the headbutt from pictures afterwards. It's absolutely bonkers. And now, and looking at this, Matheus Cunha is going to be out for a long period of time. We've seen this sort of thing happen before. We've seen players being thrown under the bus by the FA because of this. It is violent conduct of the most severe kind. And I would hate to think that this could be a situation that actually relegates Wolves, because, like I say, I get on very well with Wolves fans. I know they give me a bit of a stick over what I said last week, and that's absolutely fine. That's opinions. If you think I'm a bit of a bellend for what I said, hey ho, it's my opinion. I'm a Bournemouth fan. I'm not going to turn around and say, yeah, it was definitely a red card. I am going to give it my opinion. This was a red card all day long. There is no bloody denying this. So yeah, he's absolutely lost his head. I'm just having a quick look actually at the fixture list, and to be honest, he's very, very, very worrying. If you think that Matheus Cunha could be potentially out for so many games, the next game up is Everton, who aren't particularly, out of it. I think they're probably, pretty much safe, dependent on Ipswich and things like that. But Everton, Southampton away from home, to be honest, should beat them. But it's kind of thrown up a bit of a problem for Vitor Pereira, and it shouldn't ever have been, because I know I'm talking a bit about Wolves here, but it's I just don't actually know what I don't know what I witnessed. I don't know what I witnessed. It was fucking mayhem. I'm sorry, it was just bonkers. I'm not actually sure why Milos Kerkez got a booking out of it as well. And maybe it was because of the tugging. But Matheus Cunha, I think I'm sorry, Wolves fans. I think that the FA are going to throw the book at him, to be perfectly honest. And it's a real shame. And I hope, and I really do mean this. I do hope you do stay in the Premier League. I think you will do, but that's not helped in a million years. It's you've had some crazy moments this season. You've had Mario Lemina going off his bloody head, and Cunha throwing his toys out of his pram earlier on in the season. But that I I just don't know. I just don't know. In fact, I do like those players with that little bit of attitude, that little bit of gruff. One of my favourite players was Duncan Ferguson. He was one of the calmest men out there, wasn't he? Vinnie Jones, Dennis Wise, these sort of players. These sort of players were, players that I looked up to as a kid, and well, looked up to is probably the wrong thing, but you always liked a bit of a hard man. It made Wimbledon, it made Everton, Roy Keane made Manchester United, made Nottingham Forest. So you used to like those sort of players. And Matheus Cunha, I've got a lot of respect for him. I do like him as a professional, but this was an absolute moment of madness. So Wolves down to 10 men, and penalty shootout. Penalty shootout. Let's talk about that. So the penalties, started off. Justin Cliver, nobody needed any brainer. Wolves went first. They scored their first penalty. Justin Cliver, of course, scored his absolute no-brainer that he was going to take one. And how he converted, yeah, lovely. Honestly, lovely, lovely penalty. Next up was Dango Ouattara for Bournemouth. And Dango, do you know what? This was one of the cheekiest penalties that I think we've ever seen. Literally, he stood there and he just tapped it in. It was just phenomenal. It was just phenomenal. It was like I was worried when he was going up, and it's like Matt was saying, trust in Dango, and I was like, Dango's not the sort of player I don't fancy this. But no, just stood there and tapped it in. So cheeky. Marcus Tavernier's penalty was a little bit lucky. It wasn't the greatest penalty on this planet. Sam Johnson, I think, will probably be a bit disappointed that he didn't stop that going in. But yeah, that's fine. We'll take them. Take that little bit of luck. Maybe that's why I think our name might be on the cup. Dean Howson was next up for Bournemouth. and his penalty was poor. To be honest, defenders taking penalties, I'm not particularly a fan of it. And it was a lot of pressure on Dean's head, and so it proved. It was a poor penalty. Totti Gomez then, scored. Wolves were 3-4 up. Sorry, Totti Gomez scored before Dean Howson, I should say. So it was 4-3. And then, if Matt Doherty stood up and put it in the back of the net, Wolves would have gone through. Now this is miraculous in itself. He missed it, and then Lewis Cook scored, and then Traore stepped up and missed his for Wolves, with Sinisterra winning the day. Many emotions, to be honest, going through me at this moment in time. Can we win this FA Cup? Of course, Man City have found their way past Plymouth. Preston North End, our bogey side, should I remind you, our bogey side. The last time we beat them was 2012 under Eddie Howe, I believe. So, of course, that was in the league as well. So, that's quite some time ago. Do we want to take on our bogey side? Who knows? Let's be honest. I think we should have too much quality for them. But hey, we should go into this now, and we need this. This could be our year. I'm absolutely buzzing. I think that the side needed this after those couple of knocks in the past week or so. Where losing to Wolves in the Premier League, we're losing to Brighton and Hove Albion away at the Amex. We needed something to boost us up, and hopefully we can now take this into the Premier League game of Spurs, just to have a little bit more confidence and go again. Start another nice, decent run. Like I say, please do hit the like, subscribe, and the bell button below. Wolves fans, you're more than welcome to send in your views. Bournemouth fans as well. Feel free. Always like to read your stuff. And many thanks for all the emails as well that we've been getting as well. And some really, really nice emails. So, really do appreciate that. Of course, we will be doing more shows. There is going to be another special show that is going to be coming out very soon. It is going to be focusing on multi-club ownership with a very special guest. But we are going to be looking at the polar opposite clubs. And the other club involved is a club that I am quite heavily linked to as well. A lot of people will know my history, know where I grew up. And we're going to look at, how the polar opposites have basically changed between AFC Bournemouth and, of course, that other club. I'll leave you waiting on that. But thank you again for joining me. All the very, very best to Wolves fans if you're still watching at this point. Really do hope that you stay up in the Premier League. And let's go win the FA Cup. Come on, you Cherries.
The Talksport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the Talksport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search Talksport Fan Network.